Warsim Realm of Aslona is a kingdom management simulator that was released on the ZX Spectrum in 1983, or at the very least that is sort of what it looks like. Warsim is a game that actually left early access in December 2022, although it was an excellent and playable game for a good few years before that as well. Warsim is a text-based game with ASCII graphics and functional but limited sound design, and what it may lack in these regards it more than makes up for in its depth and richness and sense of whimsical charm. In Warsim, you become the ruler of a kingdom surrounded by warring factions, bandit hordes, and a growing rebel force. And you'll keep yourself alive by building an army, developing your nation's infrastructure, and exploring the wastelands to find weird and wonderful locations. Although, as a new and inexperienced leader, the first few times you try, there is a good chance that you won't keep yourself alive at all. A game of Warsim will usually last anywhere from 25 to 250 years, where each year is effectively one long detailed turn. And with that fixed endpoint in mind, Warsim is a game where you will play multiple saves for a handful of hours each, rather than build one nation for an enormous length of time. But that is a good thing, because it lets you appreciate the system that Warsim relies on, which is procedural generation. There are 95 million potential enemy factions based on a pretty decent number of races, from ogres to aeromancers to demigods, and multiple traits to make interesting variations of those creatures. In one game your biggest enemy might be a faction of fast-breeding dwarf zombies, and in another an army of ancient minotaurs. The differences aren't just cosmetic, the changes to the factions around you and other important figures throughout the world have a big impact on how each empire will play. So, what do you actually do in Warsim? During each year you hire recruits for your army, you explore for new locations, possibly engage in some sort of diplomacy and build upgrades for your realm. There is no time limit to each year, and you can do as much as your finances and exploration chances allow you. When finished, you end the year, and this is when you get given the option to attack other factions, but also when other factions might attack you. The army that you build up will usually contain 3 default unit types: peasants, soldiers, and knights. Peasants are pretty weak as fighters, but relatively cheap to recruit, and in between fighting they work on your lands and provide some yearly income through harvests. Soldiers are twice as strong as peasants and form the bulk of your army. Knights are only marginally stronger, but they also have the ability to train peasants into soldiers, and so there's a balance of income, strength now, and strength later between the 3 units. When these units go to fight, the combat is mostly based on a total battle score of the 2 opposing forces, combined with modifiers, events, and a bit of turn-to-turn RNG. It's a fairly simple design where you want to overwhelm an opponent to be successful, and so strategy in the combat is less about army composition, and more about being clever in when, who, and how you fight. You're given the option to launch skirmishes, raids, or invasions, which are the difference between picking off a small group of enemies, plundering a region for gold, or outright taking control of that territory. And as the reward increases, so does the chunk of enemy units that you'll likely encounter. It could be a good idea to launch some minor skirmishes to whittle down an opponent before invading, but that risk-free approach means more years where they'll still have all their gold and territories. There's a limit of 1 attack per year that makes these interesting decisions, although if your economy is performing really well, you could also hire a group of mercenaries to do a bit of dirty work for you, allowing you to weaken your enemies before launching your own invasion. The other major action you'll be taking every year is exploring. Every year you're given 3 chances to explore and search for areas of interest further out around your realm, and exploration is crucial in the development of your faction. It's how you'll discover towns, forts, and trading posts where you can hire new recruits or gain a steady stream of income through trade or force tributes. The exploration tab is also where you'll find a lot of weird and wonderful nonsense. You might watch a bar brawl and hire the victor as one of your personal champions, or teach a king of a gnome village about the concept of gambling. You can also spend your time upgrading various facilities in your kingdom and elsewhere to improve the strength or size of your army, or various buildings for productivity and culture, though because of their higher cost, this is something you won't be doing every turn. Warsim is an excellent little game. Making progress in civilization builders is an engrossing challenge, and Warsim squeezes all of that down into a tightly packed box of goodies, and it adorns it with these randomly generated bows and ribbons. It can start out as quite a daunting game. The text-based nature gives no context to the actions you can take, and you're just faced with menus within menus. It is almost certain that in your first empire you'll find yourself clicking buttons almost randomly. hiring units every turn because you can, but with no real understanding of why, exploring every year because you're reminded to, but then interacting with no real purpose, mounting raids or skirmishes or invasions just on a whim, and it all seems to be fine until it becomes apparent that it isn't. Dwindling finances, a steady decline of troops and lands followed by crushing defeats, and the realization that you maybe haven't been a very good king. And when this first happened, it was actually the moment that I really started to enjoy Warsim. My first kingdom was fun as a curiosity, but now I had a mechanical challenge. In addition to appreciating the silly details, I wanted to crack the puzzle of how to make Aslona good. And I sort of have. I just finished a save I was recording this video where I went from this starting option to a dominant empire that ruled the lands. The strategy in Warsim isn't always the most complex, but it is rewarding when you use the information provided on other factions to come up with an effective wartime plan year to year. After a few hours, Warsim also becomes a game that plays really quickly. Every action you perform is effectively a shortcut, and you'll zip around all the relevant locations and menus in the click of 1 or 2 buttons, and hopefully that will be shown in the footage. Eventually you won't even need to read half of the menus. If I need to look at my troop density, a pretty important metric for defensive strength, I know it's 3, then 4, then 7, then 7, and I can get that information in about a second. Although having said that, if you're playing the game on a laptop without a number pad, you will get a repetitive strain injury. You just will. One thing I will accept about Warsim is that to really enjoy this game, you do need to be okay with the limited stimulation that it provides. And what I mean is that there are no jazzy graphics to show off the cool things that you find. One of the saves I recorded for footage contained a faction made of Goliath lava corpse lords, titanic burning mountains of flesh whose strongest warriors were worth 100 of mine. But in the game, they are just a name and a number. And you have to be someone who will still find that exciting because of both the theme and mechanical implications. But I am that someone. How do you defeat an army when you are so clearly outmatched? Well, as it turns out, I gave them money and land to make them my ally. I recruited soldiers from them so that I had some of these beasts in my army as well. At some point I even realised that I could raise our faction relation by sending military aid amounting to 30 soldiers or 3,000 battle score, which would compensate for the decreased relationship from requesting military aid in return, which was 6 Goliath Lava Corpse Walkers and 10 Goliath Lava Corpse Lords, with a combined battle score of 37,000. And while that sounds broken, it was broken in that good roguelike way where you get the thrill of gaming the mechanics, but it won't become an issue long term because the procedural generation isn't going to give me that again. While a lot of the civilization progress will be similar, you also have to find the ways to adapt to the brand new world that you've been placed in. I really enjoy Warsim. I think this is a fantastic game. It really is one of those titles where you play just one more turn and all of a sudden it's been 2 hours. Because you can just do everything you plan so effortlessly and so quickly that there aren't any tedious moments where it would become natural to stop. I really want to emphasise not to be put off by the game's text-based design unless you know for a fact that you would hate it. I know that I play a lot of weird games, but I haven't played a management game this pared down before either, and it didn't take long at all for it to feel completely natural. I've been playing Warsim for a good few years now in early access, and it's come a long way while keeping its core identity as a game where you build up an empire in diverse and interesting fantasy kingdoms, and with it now having properly released, it is a no-brainer for me to recommend it. If you like civilization building strategy games, then Warsim is definitely worth checking out.